Hey guys, welcome back. Today's topic is human respiratory system from class 10 biology. We have a pair of external nostrils opening out above the upper lips. Here you can see in the picture, okay, so these are a pair of external nostrils, the openings of the nose, okay. Through these openings, the air enters into our respiratory system, okay. So here it leads to a nasal chamber through the nasal passage, okay. So air is taken into the body through the nostrils, okay. So air is taken into the body through nostrils, okay. The air passing through the nostrils is filtered. One of the very important concept is the air passing through the nostrils, okay, that is filtered by fine hairs, okay. They are filtered by fine hairs, okay, that line the passage, okay. And also the passage is all lined with mucus which helps in this process, okay. So it is filtered by the fine hairs present in the passage, and also there is a mucus in this passage. They play very important role in filtering the air, okay. Now continuation part of this, the nasal chamber opens into the pharynx, okay, a portion of which is the common passage for the food and air. So pharynx is a common passage, okay, for both food and air, okay. Here the pharynx opens through the larynx region into the trachea. You can see this picture, okay. Here the nostrils, the external openings, okay, then nasal passage inside the nasal chamber, then it leads to the pharynx, then after that it leads to larynx, then that finally after that it is entering into the trachea, okay. You can see this windpipe. Trachea is nothing but the windpipe, okay. So the passage here occurs like this: nostrils, then nasal passage, then pharynx, then larynx, after that the trachea, okay. Trachea is a windpipe, okay. So this is how the air is entering into our respiratory system. Larynx here is a cartilaginous structure, okay. So this is a cartilaginous box, okay, and it helps in sound production. It helps in sound production, okay, and hence it is called sound box or voice box, okay. So larynx is made up of cartilaginous structure, and it is playing important role in sound production. So it is a sound box or voice box, okay. So here during swallowing, the glottis, one important structure, okay, can be covered. This is an opening of, okay, trachea, okay. So here during the swallowing process, the glottis can be covered by thin elastic cartilaginous flap called epiglottis, okay. So this epiglottis is covering the glottis while swallowing, so that the food do not enter into the trachea windpipe, okay. So you can see here this picture. Here the trachea is present, okay, and here you can see this is one more passage in the, okay, this is esophagus, okay. So it is a food pipe and trachea is a windpipe. Now during swallowing, the food enters into esophagus and not into the trachea, and this is controlled by this cartilaginous flap called epiglottis. It is covering the glottis. Glottis is opening in the trachea. Okay, through glottis, air enters into the trachea windpipe. Okay, so epiglottis prevents the passage of food into the trachea. Okay, now moving to the next. Here, trachea is a straight tube which divides at the level of fifth thoracic vertebra into right and left primary bronchi. Okay, so trachea is divided into primary bronchi. Okay, so here trachea is a windpipe. It is divided like this. Okay, primary bronchi. These are the primary bronchi. Okay, so into the left lung and the right lung, these primary bronchi are entering. Okay, so these are the branches of the trachea. Okay, now the tracheae, the primary, secondary and tertiary bronchi and initial bronchioles are supported by incomplete cartilaginous rings. This is one of the very important concept for exams. I repeat the statement once again. Okay, the tracheae, primary, secondary and tertiary bronchi and initial bronchioles are supported by incomplete cartilaginous rings. And what is the purpose of these incomplete cartilaginous rings? Okay, these rings of cartilage ensure that the air passage does not collapse. Okay, so this is the role of the cartilaginous rings present in the trachea, primary, secondary, tertiary bronchi and initial bronchioles. All these structures, they have incomplete cartilaginous rings. These incomplete cartilaginous rings ensure that the air passage does not collapse. Okay, there is a continuous supply of oxygen. Okay, because of this process. Okay, now moving to the next. Here, each terminal bronchiole gives rise to a number of very thin, irregular, thin-walled, okay, vascularized bag-like structures called alveoli. Okay, so these are tiny sacs. Okay, these are tiny sacs present inside the lungs. These alveoli are structural and functional units. Okay, these are the functional units of lungs. Actual process of gases exchange takes place in alveoli. Okay, these are tiny sacs. These are also called miniature lungs. These are also called miniature lungs. Okay, so here the very thin, irregular walled, vascularized bag-like structures, they are called alveoli. They are the functional units of lungs. Okay, the branching network of bronchi, bronchioles and alveoli comprise the lungs. Okay, so again one more important statement. Okay, the branching network of bronchi, bronchioles and alveoli comprise the lungs. Okay, so here alveoli provide surface for exchange of gases. Okay, so they are providing the large surface area for exchange of gases. Okay, and the walls of the alveoli contain extensive network of blood vessels. Okay, actually they are providing the respiratory surface. Okay, they are providing the respiratory surface. Okay, they are thin walled. Okay, they are highly vascularized. They are highly vascularized. They provide large surface area. Okay, and they have contact with moist surface. They have contact with moist surface. Also they have contact with source of oxygen. Okay, so like this several important properties can be seen here, and they are permeable to gases. Okay, so these are the features of respiratory surfaces. I repeat this once again, very important concept. Okay, the respiratory surface which is found in the alveoli, okay, it is thin, okay, it is vascularized, it is having the large surface area, it is having the moist surface contact, and also the contact with the source of oxygen, and also it is permeable to gases. So these are the features of respiratory surfaces that are found inside the lungs, inside this alveoli wall. Okay, now moving to the next, here the continuation part, you can see here the picture of alveolus. This is one alveolus. Okay, so now you can see how the gaseous exchange process occur here. This is, okay, squamous epithelium of alveolar wall. So this is squamous epithelium. Squamous means the flat cells are found. Okay, the cells are flat cells, and here this is one celled thick layer. You can see just this is one cell thick layer. Okay, so one celled thick layer of squamous epithelium is found in alveoli. Okay, now you can see this is a blood capillary supplying blood here. Okay, again these blood capillary walls are also one celled thick. You can see this is one single celled layer, and this is also one single cell layer. So one celled thick layer is also found in these blood capillaries. Okay, now this is the direction of blood flow. Okay, this is the direction, the deoxygenated blood. Okay, so here deoxygenated blood is coming in this direction. Okay, now it is moving inside this blood capillary like this. Now here, because of the gaseous exchange process, the blood gets oxygenated, and this oxygenated blood, okay, now it will move, okay, towards the heart. Okay, so this is how you can see, okay, the gaseous exchange process occur. Here the oxygen diffuses into, okay, blood, carbon dioxide diffuses into this alveolar sac. Okay, so this is how gaseous exchange process take place in alveoli, and these are the functional units of lungs. Okay, so here you can see one celled thick squamous epithelium of alveolar wall, and here one celled thick walls of the blood capillary. Okay, between these two a basement substance is present. Okay, so this is how the red blood cells present inside here the blood. Okay, so they contain the respiratory pigment, that is hemoglobin, which is having affinity towards the oxygen. Okay, and it can transport the oxygen. Okay, so this is how gaseous exchange process occurs, okay, here in alveoli. Okay, now moving to the next, we have two lungs which are covered by a double layered pleura. These are the membranes. Pleura are the membranes. Okay, there are two membranes, outer and inner. Okay, outer membrane is parietal, inner membrane is visceral. Okay, so parietal pleura, visceral pleura. So these two are the membranes. Between the two membranes, pleural fluid is present, and this pleural fluid reduces friction on the lung surface. Very important. Okay, so the function of pleural fluid is, it is reducing the friction on the lung surface. It is protecting the lungs. Okay, so that is the importance of pleural membranes and the pleural fluid present inside them. Okay, so here the outer membrane is called parietal pleura. Okay, inner membrane is called visceral pleura. This parietal pleura is in contact with the thoracic lining. Okay, it has the contact with thoracic lining. Okay, and this visceral pleura have the contact with the lung surface, have contact with lung surface. Okay, so parietal pleura has the contact with thoracic lining, visceral pleura has the contact with lung surface, and between these two pleural membranes, pleural fluid is present, that is reducing the friction on the lung surface. Now moving to the next, here the continuation part, conducting part. Okay, the part starting with the external nostrils up to the terminal bronchioles, that is what we call conducting part. Here the air is passing through this part of the respiratory system, okay, from nostrils to the terminal bronchioles. Okay, we discussed just now. Here in human respiratory system, here we will find, okay, this trachea is divided into primary bronchi, then secondary bronchi, then tertiary bronchi. Okay, so it is like this. If we assume this as a trachea, then primary bronchi, they are further divided into secondary bronchi, they are further divided into tertiary bronchi, then initial bronchioles, then terminal bronchioles. Okay, so after that alveoli will be present. So this is how the trachea is branched inside, and up to here, okay, it is all up to terminal bronchioles. This all part is the conducting part. Okay, from nostrils to the terminal bronchioles, in all this part of the respiratory system, the air is passing, and hence it is the conducting part. Okay, it is the conducting part in the respiratory system. Okay, now the respiratory or exchange part is the alveoli and their ducts. Alveoli and their ducts, okay, they are the exchange part or the respiratory part. Here the gaseous exchange take place. Okay, now few important aspects is here conducting part, some of the important aspect. Okay, here transports the atmospheric air to alveoli. This conducting part is transporting the atmospheric air. Okay, atmospheric air is transported to alveoli. This is the function of the conducting part. Okay, now it is clearing from foreign particles. Okay, clears the air from foreign particles. Okay, it means it is filtering the air. Already we discussed in the beginning, there are tiny hair-like structures, okay, and also the mucus is present, and these tiny hairs present in the respiratory tract and also the mucus, okay, they are clearing the air from foreign particles, filtering the air. Okay, and also it humidifies. Okay, it humidifies and also brings the air to body temperature. Okay, brings air to body temperature. Okay, so these are the functions of the conducting part of respiratory system. I repeat this once again. The conducting part is nothing but the part starting with the external nostrils up to the terminal bronchioles. All this part is a conducting part. The air is passing through this part. Okay, the gases are passing through this part, and here the other functions of this part is, okay, atmospheric air is carried up to alveoli, then clears the air from foreign particles, and then humidifies the air and also brings the air to body temperature. Okay, so these are the functions of conducting part. And the exchange part, the alveoli and the ducts constitute the exchanging part. Okay, this is the site of diffusion of oxygen and carbon dioxide. So gaseous exchange process occur here. Now after this, mechanism of breathing. Here breathing involves two stages. One, inspiration, and the second, expiration. Inspiration, during which atmospheric air is drawn in, okay, into the body, the atmospheric air is drawn, and expiration, by which the alveolar air is released out. So these are the two stages in the mechanism of breathing. Okay, now if we discuss this in detail, it will be like this: inhalation process. Okay, During inhalation, diaphragm contracts. Okay, here several important structures we can see in this diagram. You can see this is diagram of inhalation. Okay, diaphragm is contracted. Contraction means normally the diaphragm is dome shape, and now when it contracts it becomes flat. Okay, so the diaphragm becomes flat. Okay, this is one of the event. Okay, then ribs and here sternum, they are raised. Sternum is the breastbone. Okay, ribs and sternum, they are raised upwards. Okay, here because of this you can see, okay, the volume of the thoracic cavity, this is increasing. So here now air enters into the lungs. So this is how inhalation occurs. Now if we check once again the points here, during inhalation the diaphragm contracts. Okay, so this is how it is contracting. And next, here the external intercostal muscles also contract. So these intercostal muscles are between ribs. Okay, they are between ribs. So here you can see between the ribs intercostal muscles are present, they also contract. Okay, then after that ribs and sternum lifted up. Already I have shown here. Okay, ribs and sternum lifted up. So the three important aspects that I have discussed so far. What is happening to the diaphragm? It is contracted. And what happens to external intercostal muscles? They also contract. Okay, ribs and sternum, they are lifted up. Okay, now because of these events the thoracic volume increases and the pulmonary volume also increases. As a result, intrapulmonary pressure decreases. When intrapulmonary pressure decreases, okay, the air from outside is entering into the lungs. Okay, and because of this forces air from outside, okay, to move into lungs. Okay, so because of all these changes that occur in human respiratory system, the air is forced into the lungs. Okay, so this is what we call inhalation. Okay, now you can see here the direction, air is entering into the lungs. Okay, so because of these events. Now after this the second stage is exhalation. Okay, during this the diaphragm relaxes, its external intercostal muscles relax, ribs and sternum come to their normal position. So the opposite events, you can see the direction of movement of diaphragm. Diaphragm is relaxed like this. Okay, and arched upwards. This is arched. This is what we call arch. Okay, so diaphragm moves here in this direction, it is relaxed, it is arched. Okay, now external intercostal muscles also relax and ribs, sternum, they returned back to their original position. See the direction of their movement. Okay, so because of these events, okay, what happens? The volume of thoracic cavity decrease. So here because this is moving upwards, this is moving again inside. Okay, it was earlier in upwards but now it is downwards. Okay, so because of these events the volume of thorax decrease. Okay, so when the volume of the thorax reduces, the pulmonary volume also reduces, and as a result intrapulmonary pressure increases, and because of this high pressure inside the lungs, the air, okay, this high pressure causes, okay, the expulsion. It causes the expulsion of air. Okay, so it causes the expulsion of the air from lungs. So air is moving out of the lungs, and this is what we call exhalation. Okay, you can see here the direction of movement of air. Air is expelled from lungs like this. Okay, because there is a high pressure inside the lungs. Okay, now After this, rate of breathing. Our own breathing is slow and shallow when we are at rest. So whenever we take rest, our own breathing is slow and it is shallow. But it is faster and deeper when we exercise hard. So whenever vigorous exercises are performed, sudden activities are performed for certain time period, okay, the rate of breathing is faster and the breathing is deeper. Okay, so faster and deeper breathing is found whenever we do exercises. Okay, but on an average, a healthy human breathes 12 to 16 times per minute. This is very, very important for exams. Okay, so on an average, a healthy human breathes 12 to 16 times per minute. Okay, and here one of the important aspect is the volume of air involved in breathing movements can be estimated. Okay, the volume of air that is involved in breathing movements can be estimated by using spirometer. Okay, by using spirometer, the volume of air that is involved in breathing movements can be estimated, and this is, okay, an instrument used for measuring this, okay, the volume of air involved in the breathing movements. Okay, so what is the name of the instrument? It is spirometer. Important. Okay, now moving to the next, tidal volume, in short TV. The volume of air inspired or expired during a normal respiration is called tidal volume. During normal condition, during normal breathing conditions, we inhale and exhale air, and that volume of air is called tidal volume. Approximately it is 500 ml. Okay, during normal condition, we inhale 500 ml of air, we exhale 500 ml of air during normal breathing process. Okay, now one more very important word here is residual volume, or in short RV. Okay, here always during the breathing cycle there is certain volume of air inside the lungs. That is what we call residual volume. Okay, so the volume of air remaining in the lungs even after a forcible expiration, even after forcible expiration, certain volume of air remains inside the lungs. That is what we call residual volume, in short RV, and this averages 1100 ml to 1200 ml. Again, this is very much important. Okay, so what is residual volume? It is the volume of air remaining in the lungs even after a forcible expiration, and it is on an average 1100 ml to 1200 ml. Now, what is the importance of this residual volume? Okay, so here because of residual volume there is sufficient time. Okay, because of residual volume there is sufficient time for, okay, oxygen to be absorbed and, okay, carbon dioxide to be released. Okay, it means the gaseous exchange process occurs smoothly because of this residual volume, because already there is a certain volume of air inside the lungs all the time. Even after forcible exhalation there is certain volume of air, and that is what we call residual volume. And because of this residual volume there is sufficient time for oxygen to be absorbed and carbon dioxide to be released during the breathing cycle. Okay, this is the importance of residual volume. Now, transport of gases. Okay, the blood brings carbon dioxide from the rest of the body for release into the alveoli. Okay, as we have seen here in picture, alveolus. Okay, the blood is bringing, this blood is bringing the carbon dioxide, okay, to the alveolus, so that it can go out of the respiratory system. Okay, so the blood which is coming from different parts, that contains deoxygenated blood, it contains carbon dioxide. Okay, so that is brought here to alveoli, and in the alveoli the gaseous exchange process will occur. Okay, so the blood brings carbon dioxide from the rest of the body for release into the alveoli. Now oxygen in the alveolar air is taken up by blood to transport to all cells in the body. So this is how, okay, carbon dioxide, okay, is released outside. This is how carbon dioxide is released, and this is how oxygen is entering into, okay, blood. So gaseous exchange process occurs like this. Okay, so oxygen in the alveolar air is taken up by blood to transport it to all cells in the body. Okay, now when the body size of animals is large, the diffusion pressure alone cannot take care of oxygen delivery to all parts of the body. Very, very important statement. Okay, I repeat this once again. When the body size of animals is large, the diffusion pressure alone cannot take care of oxygen delivery to all parts of the body. Instead, respiratory pigments take up oxygen from the air in the lungs and carry it to tissues which are deficient in oxygen before releasing it. Okay, so the respiratory pigments are playing important role of transporting oxygen to all cells in the body. Okay, so when there is a large body size, respiratory pigments are playing important role. But in simple organisms, unicellular organisms or simple multicellular organisms, diffusion is sufficient for gas exchange. But in complex multicellular animals, it is not sufficient. Respiratory pigments play very important role. Okay, now the continuation part. If the alveolar surface were spread out, it would cover about 80 meters square. Okay, so this much large area the alveoli are providing for gaseous exchange. Okay, now if diffusion were to move oxygen in our body, okay, it is estimated that it would take 3 years for a molecule of oxygen to get to our toes from our lungs. So lungs to toes, okay, 1 oxygen molecule diffusion. How much duration is needed? 3 years. Okay, so that much slow process. It is not at all sufficient. Okay, organisms cannot survive. So here further transport of 1 oxygen molecule through diffusion from lungs to toes, it takes 3 years. Okay, so that is not suitable for the survival of living organisms. So here respiratory pigments have lot of importance in transporting the oxygen. Okay, now moving to the next. Here in human beings, respiratory pigment is hemoglobin. Okay, it is present in RBCs. It is a respiratory protein. It is a respiratory pigment, okay, which has very high affinity for oxygen. So this hemoglobin has very high affinity for oxygen. Okay, now carbon dioxide is more soluble in water than oxygen. Again, one more important statement. Carbon dioxide is more soluble in water than oxygen is, and hence is mostly transported in the dissolved form in our blood. Okay, so this is how transportation occurs in our body. Okay, oxygen is mainly transported by hemoglobin, the respiratory protein, and carbon dioxide is more soluble in water, so it is transported in dissolved form. If we look here, the exact, okay, percentage of transportation, you can see here. Okay, about 97% of oxygen is transported by RBCs in the blood, and only 3% of oxygen is carried in dissolved state through the plasma. Okay, so here oxygen combines with hemoglobin, Okay, oxygen combines with hemoglobin to form oxyhemoglobin. Okay, so this is how the oxygen is carried to different cells in the body. Okay, oxygen can bind with hemoglobin in a reversible manner to form oxyhemoglobin, and each hemoglobin molecule can carry, okay, each hemoglobin molecule can carry a maximum of 4 oxygen molecules. Okay, so each hemoglobin molecule can carry a maximum of 4 oxygen molecules. Okay, now carbon dioxide, if we look here, nearly 20 to 25% of carbon dioxide is transported by RBCs, and this is in the form of carbamino hemoglobin. Okay, so carbon dioxide is transported as carbamino hemoglobin, that is around 20 to 25%, but oxygen is transported as oxyhemoglobin, that is about 97%. See, the affinity of this hemoglobin towards oxygen is higher when compared with carbon dioxide. Okay, now 70% of carbon dioxide is carried as bicarbonate, very important. Okay, so 70% of carbon dioxide is carried as bicarbonate. About 7% of carbon dioxide is carried in a dissolved state through plasma. Okay, so here 3% of oxygen is carried in dissolved state, and carbon dioxide 7% of it is carried as dissolved state. Okay, so this is about the different percentages of transport of gases in our respiratory system. Okay, now here after this, the upper part of respiratory tract is provided with small hair-like structures, they are called cilia. Okay, so the upper part of respiratory tract, okay, inside the nasal chamber. Okay, what are found? Cilia. These are provided with small hair-like structures, and these cilia help to remove germs, dust and harmful particles from the inhaled air. Okay, now smoking destroys these hair. So smoking destroys these cilia, and because of which germs, dust and smoke and other harmful chemicals enter lungs and can cause infection, okay, cough and even lung cancer. So these are the harmful consequences of smoking. It is destroying the cilia present in the upper respiratory tract, and in severe conditions it can lead to even lung cancer. Okay, so this is all about today's topic. Based on the discussion that we had till now, let's discuss some multiple choice questions. Okay, here question number 1: dash protects the lungs from injury and also aid in the expansion of the spongy and elastic lung muscle. I repeat the question once again. Dash protects the lungs, okay, so protection of lungs from injury and also aid in the expansion of the spongy and elastic lung muscle. Option 1, pleural fluid. Option 2, pericardial fluid. Option 3, cerebrospinal fluid. Option 4, lymph. Here first option is right, because pleural fluid is present inside, okay, lungs. Okay, here between the two membranes they are called parietal pleura and visceral pleura. Okay, so these are the two membranes. Between the two membranes pleural fluid is present, and this is protecting the lungs from injury. So first option is right. Pericardial fluid, it is found surrounding the heart. Okay, cerebrospinal fluid surrounding the brain and spinal cord. Lymph is a tissue fluid. This is wrong. Now moving to the second question. On an average, a healthy human breathes dash times per minute. Option 1, 42 to 46. Option 2, 32 to 36. Option 3, 12 to 16. Option 4, 22 to 26. Here, the most appropriate option is 12 to 16 times per minute. Okay, so on an average, a healthy human breathes 12 to 16 times per minute. Now, third question, volume of air remaining in the lungs even after forcible expiration. Okay, this is what we call residual volume. Okay, even after forcible expiration, there is certain volume of air, and that averages how much? Option 1, 300 ml to 500 ml. Option 2, 600 ml to 800 ml. Option 3, 900 ml to 1000 ml. Option 4, 1100 ml to 1200 ml. This option 4 is correct. So, the residual volume is on an average 1100 to 1200 ml. Now, moving to the next question. Large amount of carbon dioxide is usually transported as option 1, dissolved CO2 in plasma, carbaminohemoglobin, carboxyhemoglobin, bicarbonate. Here option 4 is correct, bicarbonate. Okay, so this is 70%, up to 70%. This is okay. Dissolved carbon dioxide is only 7%. Okay, and carbaminohemoglobin 20 to 25%, and it is not carried as carboxyhemoglobin. So obviously bicarbonate is right. Okay, so large amount of carbon dioxide is usually transported as bicarbonate. This is all about today's session. If you are new to my channel, subscribe for more sessions. If you liked it, share it with your friends. I'll be back with more sessions. Have a great day. Thank you.